Shipping can be one of the most contentious topics in the entire world. Like nothing else, it has the potential to tear apart a fandom, make them fight like hungry wolves, and turn against one another over the smallest and most innocuous of comments. Oh, and just to be clear, we're talking about shipping between characters, not trading goods via a very large sea vessel here. Sometimes, it's a very general and very well-known ship that we're dealing with. There's discussions of actual canon ships from books, films, and TV shows. So here I'm talking stuff like Harry and Ginny from Harry Potter, or any of the canon ships from Game of Thrones, or whatever. Those often go head-to-head with the non-canon ships of characters that people perceive to have lots of chemistry, or simply to have a lot of screen time together, the Harry-Hermione types. This is the region where the fandoms usually get the most ferocious, if we're being honest with ourselves. I'm not going to dive too much into that because it's not really the focus here today. I want to talk about the more obscure stuff. Specifically, I want to talk about Moana, but first I need to set the scene of my journey through the world of fandom shipping over the last couple of years. Because I really was just once a completely innocent person who knew nothing of this world. They were simpler times. Because at this point I've had a long history of randomly stumbling across obscure ships and not really knowing how to react to them. Once upon a time I stumbled across, what's it called? Rise of the Brave Tangled Dragons? Which, well, I'm not judging, it's a very interesting world to stumble across, where multiple fandoms intersect to form one extended shared universe of fanworks. A big part of that is just shipping. Mostly harmless stuff though, so I took a look and I departed. Same with the whole Jack Frost / Elsa from Frozen ship that's largely solely derived from the fact that they have magical ice powers. Nothing's usually weird in these sorts of places, and it actually seems rather wholesome for the most part. They don't usually tend to have the most hardcore stuff on offer. Well, I mean they do, using a certain definition of hardcore, but I'm talking more in terms of storylines or concepts that make you stare at the screen and wonder what wrong turns you took in life that led you to this moment. This is not that type of shit. In fact, I've noticed that the more, well, only real way to describe it is intense sort of stuff comes from the deep reaches of singular fandoms. Just to name a few, we have the absolutely wildly popular incest ship with the sisters Elsa and Anna. Thousands of works on AO3. Insane fan art. Absolutely insane. It's very weird to me, but at the same time, it's two sisters of a similar age, and whilst incest is gross, at least I can just side-eye it and move on. My god, I can't believe I didn't immediately call the offside flag on an incest ship. I really have been watching too much House of the Dragon, haven't I? On the other side of the coin, though, is stuff like Bruno and Mirabelle from Encanto, which just makes me sad. What's going on with that stuff? Shipping a minor with her 50-year-old uncle is degenerate behaviour. Seriously, how would anyone possibly find it romantic or whatever? Dude's living in the walls, doesn't bathe, and isn't she like 14 years old or something real young? He's known her since she was a baby? Nope. Yuck. I mean, I hate to yuck yums, just as a general rule, because I know it hurts people's feelings, but tough luck for this one, bub. No thanks. I've been flamed in the comments for saying this one specifically before, but that's okay. Everybody has their own opinions on these sorts of things, and some people are just different to others, I guess. But I have no regrets on backing away slowly from this dumpster fire. This brings me to Moana. Recently, I've been making a handful of videos dealing with the Moana universe. It's probably clear as to why. We just got the release of Moana 2 back in September, and it did very well for itself. It was a massive hit at the box office, and is still going quite strong, even as it starts to likely wind up as we close in on February. Although, I guess it could keep going beyond that, depending on how much legs it has at the box office. Plus, we have the live-action Moana film that's coming out next year too. The majority of the internet's going to want to point and laugh and hate on the trailer when it eventually comes out, perhaps towards the end of this year. After all, it's pretty much what they do for almost every single Disney live-action remake trailer. I do wonder, are they going to make the mistake of leaving the YouTube comments open this time? Or if they finally learned their lesson from when they get absolutely torn to shreds again and again and again. I think the Mufasa film was the only time I haven't seen overwhelming disdain oozing in the comments. But even then, it wasn't really a remake, was it? It was an untold prequel story. As I've been releasing some of these videos, though, I have noticed something cropping up from time to time in the comments. This isn't just a small one-time thing either. I've been seeing it quite a lot again and again and again. Those comments were beating the drum for Moana and Maui and how they want them to be a couple going forward into the third movie. This is something that took me by surprise because I didn't think it would be particularly a popular thing to see. In fact, I decided to go and take a look at other places online to see if this is something the wider internet audience has an appetite for. It doesn't seem to be. On AO3, it doesn't seem to be a massively utilised ship, and whilst there is fan art and whatnot out there, there's fan art out there for any ship under the sun. So I don't find that helpful at all to gauge whether or not something's truly popular or people are into it. I don't think so though. It doesn't seem to have the same level of audience penetration as a big ship usually would. That being said though, it got stuck in my head. To me, it's such a strange concept that I kind of want to dive into whether it actually works at all. I don't think it's quite a degenerate ship, but something just feels off about it. I don't know. Gotta dive in? We'll dive in deep. Okay, so I want to try to understand. Try to put myself into the mindset of enjoying this ship and wanting it to become canon. What would my reasons be? Well, for starters, I don't think it can be denied the characters themselves have a lot of on-screen chemistry that's developed over the course of the two films. When the two characters first meet all the way back during the first act of the OG Moana film, they have a pretty tempestuous relationship, I think it's safe to say. Whilst Moana quickly becomes starstruck by Maui, after all, how often is it that you actually meet a real-life demigod? This wonder turns to angst when he betrays her and locks her in a cave to die so he can steal her boat. She escapes, demands he returns the heart of Te Fiti, and save the world once more, but he refuses at first until the chance of redeeming himself becomes too tempting to pass up. Already, I'm getting it, right? Enemies to friends to lovers, it's a tried and tested trope for a reason. Angst done in a way such as this can often create on-screen electricity, which in turn draws in the viewer and makes them want to see more of the dynamic in different contexts, which then necessitates the shift in the relationship to emphasize more positive aspects. Often this will turn romantic, I get it, it sells books or movie tickets or draws TV ratings for a reason. The people, they know what they want. I could understand if people do draw this from the dynamic as well. They work together until his fishhook gets damaged, and he abandons her and leaves her to fight alone to try to save the world. Until he returns to help her at the end, even going so far as to sacrifice his fishhook, the source of his power. In some contexts, this could be viewed as a very romantic gesture, as this selfish demigod-type character truly listened to what Moana had to say. He truly took on board that she was right about everything, with her determination and spirit, in turn inspiring him to be better, and to try to save the world too, simply because it's the right thing to do. In the second film, he doesn't want Moana to get hurt. That's his priority. And so that's why he tries to avoid involving her in the stuff with Nalo. Then right there at the end, Moana dies, and Maui's the one who grabs her body and helps to summon the ancestors to revive her as a demigoddess. And it feels like a very intimate thing. On top of that, now there are two demigods in the world that we know of. I could understand that people would be drawn to the idea of these two demigods being alone in the world together. That being said, this whole thing gives me the ick, to tell you the truth. I think I've truly been able to figure out why as well. For starters, I just don't like it from a moral perspective. When the pair first meet, Maui is clearly hundreds to thousands of years old, and his body takes the form of a full-grown man. The Rock's going to be playing the role in the live-action adaptation. And so you could probably assume that Maui's supposed to be of a similar age and look to The Rock when the film first came out. Meanwhile, Moana's like 16 when they first meet. Some people might say that this is fine. Historically, there's been lots of age gaps in society. I don't care. It makes me uncomfortable. Oh, but my parents have a 20-year age gap and they've been together for decades and they're happy. Okay, but did they meet when your dad was a full-grown man who befriended a minor and then romantically pursued them once they were legal? If so, icky, sorry. Massive age gaps are not my cup of tea, but I get it. That's my hang-up. But you should never go full Richard from Friends. And whilst that is clearly one of the worst examples ever, and is wildly worse than Maui and Moana, my point still stands. Icky! On top of that, I feel like it wouldn't be very satisfying narratively anyway. Is it too much to ask that a male and a female character are just friends, or share a storyline and scene without it becoming a forced romance? Believe it or not, it is possible for men and women to be friends, with no added romantic element. I think it's more compelling, in fact, for it to be a simple friendship more than anything else, and it nicely ties into Moana's story of becoming a leader. In the first film, Maui serves kind of as a stand-in for her people, for her father, those who are too afraid to risk themselves, and so they hide, or they run away. Meanwhile, Moana, despite being young and less experienced, charts her course and heads towards danger because it's the only way. This inspires Maui, and then her father and her people, and it's her first step towards becoming a true leader, showing up the old guard and pushing them to change. And I think that any sort of romance would dampen and cheapen that message. Does he listen because her words inspired him and she proved herself as a leader and a warrior? Or did he listen because he found her hot? You get me? I just don't like it, and I think it cheapens their friendship and her arc overall. Plus, morals or story integrity aside, I don't see how you'd possibly have room for this type of thing in a future Moana film. There's already so much that needs to be explored. You have Moana, her dynamics with different crew members, and surely they'll be adding some new ones from different island peoples. She needs to come to grips with her demigod powers, free Matangi, fight Nalo, keep exploring her leadership arc, which was further built up in Moana 2. She's got her family dynamics she's got to deal with, her little sister as well. I just don't think there's really enough time to dedicate to fleshing out a romance in a way that works and makes sense. Especially when it's two big name characters, the story would need to be equally big, but that in turn would distract from the core themes of the franchise and derail the story, which is something that I really wouldn't want, to be honest. I think if Moana was going to have a romance, which I don't think she will, honestly, as I think it's not a necessary element to her story and won't add anything, it's going to be with a far more minor character, more as a throwaway story thread that they can ignore until they want some comic relief or a quick kiss or something like that. So yeah, it's a no from me for Maui and Moana. Sorry if this is your OTP, but it is my no TP. And now there's nothing else to say, and so I will just remind you these have all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think about what I've had to say about Moana and Maui? Are you with me? Maybe not. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.